Hi everyone, Sabrina from Campbell's Freedom Farm, and today we finally get to plant our aubergines, or eggplant as we know it, and peppers, and we're going to throw in some pole beans. And I'll explain why the pole beans, how it's related. But everybody loves to put these into the ground, and then later in the season they wonder what happened. It all starts from the basics of planting. So let's go over that so you could have a easy peasy planting time. Okay, now both of these plants like the heat, but they don't like it overly hot. So I always plant them when my hair starts frizzing because I know it's hot and the temperatures are staying above 50 at night. And I also plant them when they have been hardened off. A lot of people buy them and then they run to the ground and throw them in, and it stresses them. It's like us going to run a marathon in the heat. It's not good. First of all, step one, harden them off. After they harden them off and they're used to your climate, trying to get out of the sun, the next thing is make sure they're healthy plants. Don't put a plant in if it doesn't look healthy. Flip it over. If you see any pests, this is the time to spray them upside down on the bottom leaves because they don't get wet as much. Now, before we put them in, let's talk about some diseases and some watering issues. Let me get out of the sun. Before we put them in the ground, we need to find out what kind of watering system we're going to work with and what kind of soil you have. Now, if anybody hasn't watched the video on the soil on my raised beds and in the ground, we'll go over it. But you want something that's loose, filled with a lot of compost, and just nice soil, not the clays, because clay will drown the roots, and you don't want that. And you want a soil that will hold the nutrients. Now later on, we'll fertilize if we need to, but right now we're just putting them into the ground. I'm not going to give them supercharge and let them grow really tall, but that would be nitrogen. We don't want a lot of nitrogen with these plants. We want something that's bushy and can hold the weight of the fruit. Now, watering, what's that got to do with it? Well, first of all, a lot of the diseases is caused by watering issues. Now, everybody has heard of the blossom end rot, where the fruit is it looks rotted. It's really not rotted. Did you know that? It's just not able to develop that skin. You could cut that off and eat around it. But it's caused by overwatering, then underwatering, going back and forth. It'll actually crack a watermelon. Did you know that? And it also brings in a lot of fungus issues. It could be bacteria if you have damp soil. I never plant tomatoes in the ground. I learned my lesson 3 times before I really got it, till I'm done with the weather raining. So the best thing is to never water overhead. If you don't have an irrigation system, like I don't have one yet, I water on the soil level. Now, I don't spray overhead, because eggplants especially, they'll pick up everything there is. If you say fungus, they said, where is it? So let me show you how I'm going to plant them and how I'm going to water them. If we could get these basics in, you're on the start of a great season for vegetables. Let me get the supplies. All right, now I have some bell peppers and I have some hot peppers. I could combine them, but bell peppers hate the sun on them when it gets over 80s, 90s. So they'll actually burn. There's a little shade over here during the day, so I'm putting them over here. But otherwise, it's a myth. You could plant hot peppers and bell peppers together. It doesn't change the taste of the fruit this year. If you collected the seeds, then planted them, then they would be different. But we're just worried about this year. My father used to make me plant them way across from the farm. He was so worried about that. But after he left, I moved them back. But so I have one plant. You won't see me, just my hands now. I put one in, these are the purple, and see how the crown's right here? Don't sink them into the ground. That's another problem. You're looking for some issues of the stem rotting. Now, second of all, I'm gonna keep these about 12 inches apart because they're gonna support each other. Now there's a man that dumps like a gallon per plant every week to 2 weeks. And then he's done, he comes back. In my climate, we're humid, we're the Midwest, so much humidity, that would rot. The leaves, it would rot the roots, everything. His theory was that as it dries up, the roots would have to reach for it. And I could see that, but if that's the case, you could take some water, Panera's, dump it in to get it started. And then I'm gonna put this plant flat to the ground, and that's it. Now, these are already damp, so I don't need to water this. Maybe tomorrow I'll water it. I want consistent temperatures in the soil. I want it cool. I want it a little damp, but not too damp because you'll get fungus. If you water it properly, you're gonna cut out a lot of diseases. All right, let's go to the eggplant. All right, now I already put an eggplant in, aubergine, and it's flat to the ground with the crown. Only the tomatoes with the trichomes could you bury it deeper. Because remember, they sprawl and they hook into the ground as they sprawl. Now, an eggplant and a tomato, I think, are the worst for the diseases. So for them, the biggest problem is a lot of airflow. These get bushy. And so what I do in the beginning, I just pinch off some of these lower leaves. Just like that. And that way, there's nothing keeping the moisture down. So for them, they really hook onto the leaves, some of the problems. So again, I'm going to dump some water in here, and these are already watered, so I'm not planting dry stuff. Put it in, and that's it. Now, do these need stakes? They will later on. They'll only get this tall, but the problem is the fruit gets really heavy and they fall over. But I'm going to do some companion planting in the next video. We're going to add a lot of flowers, something that brings in pollinators, that keeps pests away. So I don't want to do any staking until I know. So this is a two-part video, really. So in the next circle, I'm going to do peppers, aubergines, aubergines, peppers. You got the point. And it's just so easy. If you put them in the ground when they're ready and there's no problems, it cuts off most of the problems. Watering, if you keep it consistent, no problem. Now, let's talk about food. If you give it, let's say a 10-10-10, where the nitrogen is the first one and phosphorus is the next, you are going to have plants that just go crazy. It's perfect for a movie set. You know, they want the really tall, lush looking garden. It's not going to fruit. So you want something where the phosphorus, the middle one, is double of what the nitrogen is. So a 5-10 or something. I'm just coming up with that. I'm not going to give it any fertilization because I have compost and it has enough nitrogen for it. I want the phosphorus to really make some nice roots and really go deep into the ground so it can hold the weight and it can get more nutrients out of the soil. But now let's talk beans. Why plant beans with the Nightshade family? Well, anytime I plant eggplant, I plant my beans because they like the same temperature to start. So every time you think of eggplant, plant a seed. So all you do is, and this includes bush and pole beans. So on the beans, you want to space them every 6 inches if you're only going to do one planting. So for me, I'm going to do 2 plantings. So because you want to have a constant supply of beans. So all you do is take a bean. I'm going to poke a hole that's about 1 inch, put it in, and then cover it, and then we're done. All right. If you didn't notice, Huggy Bear is not walking around. He had some major dental work. I mean, he came out with a really bad fever. He was shaking. Turned out he had such an infection in his mouth. He's getting older. So we rushed him to Dr. Stoltz, and thanks to Dr. Stoltz and his crew, they did such an amazing job. He is now eating, he's walking. He really wants to come out, but his mouth still hurts. But I picked up an electric smoker at a garage sale. Hopefully they're watching because I think they subscribe. And eggplants and peppers are one of the best things to put on a smoker besides fish and whatever else. They're excellent on there. So after I practice, so Dr. Stoltz and your crew, you're going to get some lunch from Campbell's Freedom Farm because we appreciate you. Taylor's looking at me, but you know, these dogs, those are our kids. So, but this is Sabrina from Campbell's Freedom Farm. The next video, I'm going to beautify this whole garden. So I'll see you then. Please thumbs up.